This holiday season, surprise everyone on your list with the best gifts. Tickets to see their favorite artists live. Choose from thousands of concerts and comedy shows, including Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, Matt Matthews, Metallica, Thomas Rhett, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Sarah Silverman, and so many more. Share a memory together or give a gift they'll never forget. Find the most exciting gift for every fan at livenation.com/gifts. That's livenation.com/gifts.
Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to a very special December bonus episode. I am Lucy from Wine and Crime, and I'm here with two special guests. I guess they also have me as a guest. Charlie from Crimelines and Kristen from Murder, She Told.
Hello, I'm Charlie from Crimelines. I'm so happy to be here.
And I'm Kristen from Murder, She Told, and likewise.
So big shout out to Josh Hallmark of True Crime Bullshit for kind of scheming, shall we say, arranging.
Matchmaking.
A little crossover episode, just so we have some content for our wonderful listeners at the end of December when we're kind of normally taking a little break, slowing it down a little bit. And we wanted to talk about our own shows. We wanted to talk about some crazy cases to just sort of like recap 2024 because this was a hell of a year.
Absolutely for you.
It really was.
I watched it on social media.
Big changes this year for some more than others. Yeah, I guess we can kind of tell a little bit of background about each of our shows in case, the listeners aren't exactly familiar. Charlie, you want to go first?
Yeah, I host a show called Crimelines. It's one of those really straightforward true crime shows where I just tell a narrative story of what happened. I tend to get pedantic and a little bit in the weeds and the details. So if you like hearing too much information, then Crimelines would be perfect for you.
I would call it holistic.
Oh, that's so nice. Can you write my copy for me? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
I'm Kristen from Murder, She Told, and Murder, She Told is also very straightforward where I just tell you a story and I tell you the facts of the story, but we often work with a lot of families, and the cases that we tell aren't usually ones that you can Google or find, on like a Dateline episode and stuff like that. So we do a little bit more like digging in the weeds to find details and bring you these stories to life. And we also cover a lot of unsolved cases too. So there's a little bit of advocacy that goes along with that.
And yours are primarily like in the northeast part of the country, right?
Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that. So my cases mostly focus on the New England region, though I am looking to branch out a little bit more. I'd like to spread out a little bit, but New England is where I'm from. I'm from Maine. So I just always felt like Maine was never featured on anything that I was really listening to or watching. So I kind of wanted to change that and give these cases that aren't getting the attention a little bit of a platform.
Well, I very much respect the serious work that the two of you do because my show is not anything like that.
But you make us laugh.
Well, we all need a little bit of levity, but we're certainly not breaking open any cold cases over at Wine and Crime. But I'm Lucy. I'm the co-host of Wine and Crime with my friend Amanda. And every week we dive into some random topic like shallow graves or stashed bods or forensic spectrometry. Spectrometry. I still can't pronounce it. And then we pair that topic with a wine and we just are not, we're silly about it.
I love that you do like topical episodes where you have different stories under one topic. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's not serialized at all. So you can just jump into any episode and be annoyed by us. So I guess one thing that we could kind of start out talking about, 2024, as we've kind of been over, had a whole lot of highlights for all of us. What were some highlights for you, whether that was like festivals, live shows, any travel, any cases that you made some progress on? Tell us about how your 2024 was.
This year was a year where I went to the festivals that I like to go to, which is the True Crime Podcast Festival and the Berkshire Podcast Festival, which we were all at. So it's kind of funny to recap with you two something you were at. But for our listeners who may not have been there, I mean, it's just such an incredible opportunity to go to these events because we're not just like meeting listeners and doing the meet and greet. We're networking with each other and getting to know each other on a personal level. And I learned about Lucy that she buys really expensive wine at the bar. And because
the Sauvignon Blanc,
you were like heading to bed and you still had some of your wine left. So you're like, here, finish this. And I drank it. I was like, oh my God, that was delicious. And I went to get another one. And I was like, no, thank you. No, that was a lot of money. But thank you for like a $10 sip of wine. It was great.
I believe it was $16 a glass. And my mother was there. And that was definitely my mom's tab. So probably why I wasn't even aware that it was a really expensive glass of wine.
Yes, I tend to, like my bottles of wine tend to cost $16 or less.
Okay.
So for me, a glass that's $16, $20, not really what I tend to gravitate towards.
I respect that. I'm sorry that I shocked you.
You gave her the thrill of her life.
Really, it was a highlight. It was a highlight.
That's the reason why she's going back to TCPF.
Perfect. Well, the next time we're together, the first round's on me.
Yeah, which speaking of TCPF, True Crime Podcast Festival, in case that's not clicking, that's going to be in Boston next year. So that'll be fun being in my neck of the woods.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I love that area. I grew up in Connecticut, which is why Kristen and I have talked about Maine. My grandmother grew up in Maine, and she, when they got older, bought property up there. And I said, oh, Kristen, I used to spend my summers in Maine. I love it. And she's like, oh, where in Maine? And I insisted she had never heard of it because even people who live in that area have never heard of it. It is one of those towns you drive through and you don't even know you went through it. Though I don't know why you drive through it either. And I was like, oh, it's Stetson, Maine. And she goes, I know where that is. And it turns out she like lives right next to it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Newport, and I too have to explain where Newport is because most people don't know where it is, even though it's right off the interstate. And it's a prominent little tiny town, but it's kind of the hub for these little towns around it. And Stetson is one of them. And Stetson has like population 12. I'm exaggerating, but my aunt actually lives there. But it's just crazy because like Stetson went to my high school, which is Nokomis Regional High School. So I do know where Stetson is, but I'm never in my life expected somebody to be like, oh, yeah, I have family that grew up in Stetson, Maine.
I used to summer there. I mean, who summers in Stetson, Maine?
I don't know. You would summer in Newport because there's a lake here. Stetson has like their downtown, I'm using air quotes for that, has like a post office, and that's it.
I mean, this town like paused in 1850.
Yes.
I love that. That sounds like the perfect summering destination. Well, Maine is beautiful. I've never actually been, but according to the postcards, it's gorgeous.
According to the pictures, it's amazing.
The stock art.
You did the fun facts. I know we're way off on a tangent already, but you did the fun facts about Maine for your episode, your Missing in Maine episode.
Uh-huh.
And I was cracking up in the car. We were driving, I think, to the Berkshires, and I was listening to it. And it was really funny. I think you called Maine the fingernail on the middle finger of the United States.
Is that wrong?
I mean, I'd never thought of it that way, but I was like, I could see that. Yeah.
So I remember one of the cases that we did in that episode was that like kind of hippie guy who like just wandered into the woods.
Yeah, Jeremy Alex.
That was so bizarre. That like sticks with me.
I was going to mention that episode because we did an episode on that this year for the 20th anniversary. And we worked with his sister who had never really spoken publicly about it like this before. So, because, that episode or that case has a lot of just rumors that just kind of follow. Like there's a lot of muck surrounding that case. So I wanted to just kind of like weed through those rumors and put something fresh out. So we worked with Jeremy Alex's sister to put out an episode in April.
I got to go back and listen. Was that the one where they found his wallet washed up too?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
so creepy.
His ID is just like sitting in somebody's, like they have a jar sitting on their table of things that they collect from the ocean. And this missing guy's ID is sitting in this thing. And someone comes over and is like, do you realize who that is? Like, that guy's missing.
Wow.
You should turn that into the police.
Makes you wonder how many souvenirs people just pick up and don't realize the importance of. Though if I found somebody's wallet and ID, I would not put it in a jar. I'm just saying, I don't think that's best practices.
Yeah, you'd think they would try to get a hold of someone.
It's kind of an odd choice. Like, I don't think it's nefarious, but it's an odd choice.
I mean, I keep a lot of weird shit. I would have done my due diligence.
Or you have every intentions of like turning it into the police, but then it just sits in a drawer and then it gets put into another drawer and then...
Life happens.
Yep.
Kristen, any other highlights from you?
Yeah, so going to festivals is always a highlight because I get to see friends, I get to meet new people. Lucy, I met you, I think this year, because you weren't at TCPF or Berkshire's last year, right?
Yeah, this was my first year for both of them.
Awesome. Yeah, so I got to meet Lucy this year, which was fun. And so there's a case that we work on with the Kittery Police Department. Charlie's familiar with it, but I don't know if Lucy is. I won't get into the weeds on the story, but it's a pretty bizarre case from 1983, and we're partnered with the Kittery, Maine Police Department on it. And this year, as part of our investigation, we actually released new information, which was really exciting, and it felt really meaningful. So we had basically digitized a bunch of files. We digitized the case file, and then we went through a bunch of old records at the police station and scanned them. It took 2 days. And then after 2 days of like pulling out rusty staples and just going through all of these really old records that haven't seen the light of day since 1983, we ended up finding a name of a person that, if you listen to the original episode, we were searching for. So yeah, we found new information. I did a big press release on it to try to find this woman. Her name is Cheryl. If you know a Cheryl from the Seacoast, New Hampshire area, let me know.
Wow, cool. So much like boots on the ground work that you guys do. It's very impressive.
I mean, being actually involved in the investigation in an official capacity is so interesting. And what Kristen's able to provide is basically the free labor that the Kittery police can't afford to give somebody 2 or 3 days to digitize photos and old files. They need someone to come in and do it for them. And Kristen and her partner Byron were able to do that for them.
And it's also nice just having a team that trusts you and, you know, believes in you. Like the detective, well, he's actually a sergeant now. Sergeant Brian Kummer is just amazing. And, you know, he has full trust in us. The chief does as well. So it's nice to have a police department that sees the value in partnering with the right people and what that can help for a case.
I wonder if that's very common, or if like the majority of the time the police are like, this is our shit, don't mess with it.
That's the majority.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's the majority. Generally, when you reach out to the police, sometimes you will get an interview. A lot of times you just get a statement. And the statement is the vague thing that they've been telling the media for 15 years.
Yeah, just the same thing over and over.
Yeah, we are following up every lead that comes in. It's still an open investigation. We are still working on this, even though you're like, there's dust on the evidence file. I don't think you're working on it. But you tend to get the same things repeated. They do seem reluctant to work with, I don't want to necessarily, like, Kristen doesn't really fall in this. I do. Like, amateur sleuth. Like, at this point, Kristen is like, knows what she's doing because she's been doing it. I am amateur. I'm the person they do not want to work with because I'd probably go on Reddit and mess everything up. But I'm the type of person they're worried about.
I don't know, Charlie, you have integrity.
I don't think I would mess anything up on purpose. I might say the wrong thing to the wrong person. I don't know. But that's why I don't get involved in that way, because I'm not trained and not, you know, I work with families, but I don't work with the police on cases. But yeah, there is a reluctance to accept outside help. And we've seen even with like the DNA Doe Project, they're like, we have funding, we can help you with this. And there will still be reluctance. And they are professionals. They do know what they're doing.
I think that's I think there's a lot of value in like a retired investigator.
Yes.
Because like if they've been stuck on a case for however long, then they're retired. They don't really have any allegiance to whatever the cops are doing now. They probably know better than anyone that they're not doing shit.
Yeah.
I watched the new Netflix John Benet Ramsey documentary when it came out a couple weeks ago, and like they had a retired detective, and he was like, "Yeah, well, they're going the wrong way," and you know whether or not that is actually true, it would still I think give a lot of hope to the families and the people outside of the police department itself that things are still moving along, because I can't imagine how frustrating that would be to just have people give up.
So, Lucy, how has your year been? I feel like this is the one we need to settle in. If it wasn't 10, 11 in the morning, I'd take a drink, but let's go.
Grab a glass of wine. Let's hear about it.
Well, we started off the year going from 3 hosts down to 2 hosts, and that was a big change for us. And I think that Amanda and I feel like we bounced back pretty well. We have obviously like a natural chemistry because we've been friends for 25 years. But yeah, I think Wine and Crime feels a lot more fresh. We're doing a lot of different things. We're kind of doing some experimental things, more content, more travel. We're kind of have some like travel, like video content coming out. So that'll be fun.
You've been going to some you've gone to cool place and you have some cool places coming up.
Yes, definitely. We have partnered with Trova Trip, if either of you are familiar with that.
I have a Trova Trip coming up with Josh.
Yes, you do. I'm so jealous. But Trova pairs like, podcasters, influencers, all sorts of people with their audience, and then plans foreign expeditions together. We're like traveling all over the world with different groups of our Wine Coven listeners, and we just went to Italy about a month ago, and that was so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to go there.
We flew into Rome, spent a couple days in Rome, took the train up to Florence for a couple days, and then ended our trip back in Rome. But I was kind of nervous about like going on a trip with people who I think they feel like they know a lot about me, but they're total strangers to me. But everyone just bonded so well, and they were so friendly. And yeah, I think I and a lot of the people in our group have friends for a lifetime now. Charlie, I'm really excited for your trip. You're going to Chile, right?
We're going to Chile and Argentina, and it is sightseeing and wine vineyard visiting, because we are going during the grape harvest season, which is just like such an amazing time to be somewhere like Mendoza. What we've done, because like I'm an extrovert, I'm fine wherever, but Josh particularly, he's like, I'm really interested in doing this, but I don't know about traveling with strangers. Mm-hmm. So we've done a couple Zoom calls already, and we have a WhatsApp group so that everybody can get to know each other ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, 2 of the travelers even came to the Berkshire Podcast Festival, and one of them I already know. And so it's a group where we're like, oh, we're a bunch of like relatively normal people, nothing off the wall, nothing like no bad vibes between anyone. Everything seemed great. So and then we got to know people. So when we get there, we don't feel like they're complete strangers. So I'm excited.
I think that's really smart. I think that's a good way to like break the ice before you get there. So then you don't have to spend time, like, what do you do? What's your name? All of that stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a WhatsApp group before we left, and actually the group is blowing up my phone right now. Like we're still communicating every day. I got to tell you one highlight from Rome. I mean, if I had to pick one, it's obviously going to be this. We went to the Capuchin monk crypt. So basically this is like a sect of monks, and, they're into like poverty and prayer and fasting, and they're monks. And when they pass away, their remains are like skeletonized, kind of mummified. And then they have a crypt with like 7 or 8 different chapels that you walk down a long hallway, and you can see them all on the right hand side. They're just like open to this hallway, and it's all decorated with their bones.
Whoa.
Just thousands of bones, and I think probably thousands of actual individuals worth of bones. It was like if you had like the catacombs in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just like took all that out and made artwork with it. It was all like in beautiful patterns. Some of the monks were just kind of mummified as they were, and they were wearing cloaks, and they were like, you know, articulated like a human being. But most of them were just the separate pieces of bones, whether it was a skull or a scapula or a spine or whatever. And then that's what the lamp would be made out of, or that's what the whole wall would just be skulls or tibulas. It was so cool.
Do you know how old like the bones go back?
Oh, let me Google it.
I took my daughter when I went to London. She came with me. We went out to Windsor Castle, and I took her to St. George's Chapel, and we're walking through it, and I look down, and there's the plaque for Henry VIII, and I thought, okay, that's a royal she knows. So I told her, oh, look, Eden, Henry VIII, and she looks at it, and she goes, why is there a plaque on the floor? And I said, well, everyone is buried under these plaques, and she's like, have we been walking on dead bodies this whole time? And I was like, yeah. And I swear she almost ran out of that church. She has the absolute worst superstitions when it comes to that sort of thing. And so we left to London and we went to Paris, and I had just crossed off catacombs off the list like immediately, because I was like, there is no way I'm getting her to do that if she couldn't handle walking on top of a grave.
Yeah, the catacombs probably aren't the best for that.
I went to Salem this year, and that was really fun. Just for like a fun trip with my cousin. We've never been. We've always wanted to go. And we went in June, which I would highly recommend because you don't have all the chaos of the fall and the Halloween season. But we got to do everything we wanted to do, all of the cheesy tourist stuff. And the cemetery is beautiful.
Did it feel just as haunted as it would have in like October?
Oh, absolutely. We did a ghost tour, and a branch of this gigantic tree like fell off into the cemetery as this lady was telling her story of the ghost being over in that area.
I love that.
It's definitely haunted. And it's funny because I was like videoing because we were getting a storm. It was going to be like massive downpour because we'd had a giant heat wave. And I was videoing secretly because you're not supposed to like video them. But I was mostly just getting like the cemetery because everything was like blowing in the wind and it was creepy and spooky. And I stopped recording, I kid you not, like 5 seconds before that, there was a huge crack and it sounded like lightning struck a building. And then I watched this massive branch of this 200-plus-year-old tree fall over.
Dang.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Did it like disrupt any of the tombstones or anything?
No, because it was actually on the back side of the cemetery, which is on a hill. So it fell over down to the ground below. And my cousin and I the next day went to go find it, and it fell on a dumpster next to this restaurant.
Oh, that's handy.
But because the old burial ground is so old, there's a lot of like erosion that happens and stuff like that. And the guide told us of a story. There's a Mexican restaurant that's right next to where that branch fell. And the guide told us a story that, I don't know, maybe like 20 years ago, these people were sitting in this Mexican restaurant, just eating, having a margarita. And then all of a sudden, through the wall behind them, which is like level to where the graves would be buried because it's on a hill, caskets just come flying through the wall.
Oh my God.
Because of the erosion just like pushed them out. And then they had to like figure out where they all go and who they are.
Into the restaurant?
Into the restaurant. Could you imagine that? Like you're like four margaritas in, and then all of a sudden this casket from 1805 comes bursting out through the wall.
Can I have some more chips?
My daughter would never return to that entire state. Like she would be like, no, not going to happen.
She'd be like, never again. The whole state of Massachusetts is haunted.
Salem's really close to where TCPF is in Danvers. So hopefully some people can get down there while they're at TCPF.
Yeah, I highly recommend it, especially if you like history stuff.
Okay, so Capuchin Monk Crypt, it was started in 1626 and finished in 1631. So it's like 400 years old.
Wow.
It's cool.
That's wild.
I wonder if he's like, I have an idea for an art project. Hear me out.
Yeah, because I think it was just one guy who was like, I'm going to give this a go.
He's like, I'm a little bored in here with all this prayer and silence stuff. Let's jazz it up.
I feel like it's such an interesting way to like honor people from that time period. You know, like they probably didn't even think like in 2024, there's groups of people that are going to be walking through here and seeing this art and this history.
I think he probably got like a vision from God or something to build it. But I think because they're monks and their whole thing is like, you know, it's not about this life, it's about the next life.
Right.
They didn't have they didn't have the same kind of reverence for their actual remains. Mm-hmm. They wanted to kind of use themselves, their lives, and their deaths to sort of inform future generations. That was kind of the vibe I got. But I have a funny, quick story. Okay, so there is a gift shop, obviously. And of course, I wanted everything in there. But I bought just a ballpoint pen, and it had like photos of some of the skeletons and the crypts and stuff. It's kind of hard to tell what it is from a distance because they're like photographs on a pen. But anyway, so that was like my purse pen. And last weekend, I went to my sister-in-law's baby shower, and my husband's family they live in a small town. They're pretty conservative. And my sister-in-law's husband's mother is especially conservative and like older, very quiet, just very buttoned up. They're not Mennonite, but like they could be, you know? So we're playing games at the baby shower, and I was using my purse pen. And then I accidentally left the pen on the table when we left with all the other pens that someone brought for the baby shower games. And I realized that I left it there the next day. So I texted Corey's mother, and I was like, I left my pen and I wouldn't care, but I got it in Rome and it's kind of special to me. And she's like, oh, I'll ask Elaine. What does your pen look like? And Elaine is the dad's mom, the very conservative one. And I was like, well, it's white and it's covered with photos of human skeletons. She can just pull that out of the pile and set it aside for me. I'll get it at Christmas.
It's easy to find.
Yeah. But I felt kind of bad because she's probably like, I don't know.
You brought a demon pen into her home.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Well, she brought it into her own home, really. But I definitely want it back.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a highlight for me. Oh, one other thing that I just kind of wanted to touch on. I don't know if you two are familiar with Supercast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're launching our own Supercast channel for Wine and Crime. We're calling it Uncorked. And so we're going to have all sorts of like extra bonus content on there. We're migrating from Patreon over to Uncorked. So yeah, that's a really exciting thing for us because we're also going to be able to offer our entire back catalog ad-free.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to plug that real quick because it's a scary thing to move away from Patreon, but our Uncorked channel is going to be 10 times better, and I'm just really excited for it.
I have a Supercast, and I really, really like what they do there, and I like how they're designed for podcasting, so every update they do benefits podcasters, where Patreon is just spread so thin to try to meet the needs of every creator who could possibly have a Patreon. I've not migrated my Patreon over, and so I still, have Patreon, but I also rebranded my bonus content to be kind of its own show. So instead of just getting like bonus episodes of Crimelines, it's called Beyond the Files, and I take Forensic Files episodes, and then I do what I do, and I do all the research. And so the 22 minutes they had on Forensic Files becomes an hour-long podcast.
I love that.
So if you've ever watched Forensic Files and was like, I wonder if there's more to the story. Yes, there is. And also, for some reason, they put completely inaccurate information in there sometimes, like changing information. In one, they said that the guy had admitted he killed her, but said it was an accident. And then I pulled the court records, and no, he said he didn't do it. Like, I was like, why are they making that up? They just completely made up a defense that he didn't even present. And so it's been interesting to see what they do and what they leave out. There's another case where they only talk about 3 of the people who were tried and convicted of the crime, but there were actually 4 involved. They just ignored one person entirely, didn't even mention him. to the point I was gaslit into thinking, am I wrong? Like, do I not know how to read? Because I'm pretty sure there's another guy. And I had to like recheck everything. I mean, it is really fascinating, but it's been great for my listeners to get something new. But it's also been great for me to have something new to do. So I think you're going to find that too, that just having something that's not the same thing that you do week after week, it brings like kind of life back into it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds us that we actually enjoy what we do.
Yes.
In various formats.
I have spent a lot of time at hotels this year, and Forensic Files is always on. It has become like a comfort to just like, oh, I'm in my hotel. Let me put Forensic Files on. Like, because it's just always on.
I fall asleep to it. So Peter Thomas is the narrator of Forensic Files, and he's dead, and I'm so upset about it because can you imagine if like one of us had him as a guest on our show?
Here's what I want to ask him. Because being that I'm doing this deep dive into those episodes, there's an episode where he says someone's name so wrong that it's not even the same thing. The lady's name was like Calcaterra, and he calls her Calcutta. And I just want to be like, did you not have a producer? Like, do you just record this in your basement like I do with my podcast and no one says, hey, you said that wrong? And they just like, they let it go. You don't pick up lines. I really want to hear about the production side, having delved into so many episodes at this point. And I have hundreds more to go.
Unsolved Mysteries get stuff wrong too.
Oh, God. They got a fact check. Robert Stack.
Which I would love to have him on, but he's also dead.
He is?
Yes.
Ah, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
They're all dead.
They were all pretty old when they did these shows.
I know.
And so now we're looking back 20 years later and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're gone. They'd be like 110 if they were alive.
Yeah, that's true.
It's always upsetting to like remember how long ago the 90s really were.
When I get listeners say, I really like more modern cases, so like nothing before 2000. And I'm like, do you know how old I am? That feels really offensive to me. That anything before 2000 is just too old.
Oh my God.
The 1900s.
My daughter, again, back to my daughter, she's something else, but she has a playlist on our shared music account that is called the 1900s. And it has like TLC on it.
Stop it.
And Boys to Men. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Let's go dig our graves now.
Just send me through the wall of a Mexican restaurant because
yes.
I'm
right now.
I'm done. I'm dust.
Well, the new American Girl doll, the like historic girl of the year, was from 1999, and she is the new historic girl.
I hate everything. I hate it.
Just leaving that out there.
I had a child that year.
Oh, Jesus. Too much.
I do not have a Patreon, but that is my goal for this year. I know that I am leaving support on the table and I need it, quite frankly. And also I would love to be able to offer ad-free. So that is something that I'm working on. And I would love to be able to finally offer that this year. I wish that like I had started out with ad-free stuff as far as like collecting all of the MP3s and stuff like that to make it easy for myself now, because it's hard carving out that time to go back into my back catalog and like re-export everything and all of that. So that's really what the holdup is. It's just like the workload of doing it.
We're doing kind of a like an ongoing rollout of our back catalog. So it'll be like 10 episodes every however long. And then that'll just kind of keep going because it is a ton of work to go back and re-edit and re-export and re-upload and all that stuff. So
yeah, for me, I had a podcast that offered ad-free and bonus content on Patreon. And when that podcast ended, I kind of gave people 2 months to like delete their Patreon support before Crimelines launched. And I just used the same account. And so I was already, used to doing ad-free. So I started ad-free on day one. So I've kept up on it because if I had to go back and redo it, I don't know that it would get done. I have to go back on my website and change the I've been embedding the player from my hosting service. But if you change hosting services, that dies and then your whole website is like not working anymore. So what I need to do is go through and replace it with like a Spotify.
That's what I did.
One instead. And I need to sit down and do that, which is going to take me a hot minute to have the time to do it. And that is just replacing code that I copy and paste. If I had to recut my episodes to remove ads and ad breaks, I don't know that it would happen.
It's so
Especially,
much work.
Lucy, you guys have like 400 episodes?
Today, December 12th, as we record, is the release date of our 400th episode.
Wow.
See?
Yeah.
That is impressive.
That's impressive, and that's a lot of recutting of
It's a
episodes.
lot of work.
Well, because of and thanks to our Patreon supporters, we are able to employ a professional editor to do that for
nice.
us. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
it's very reciprocal. We just want to we want to have a really good ongoing relationship with everybody who supports us, especially financially, because that is we're all producing content that is technically free. But just, I mean, clearly we all have so much actual work to do behind the scenes, and it's supporters who are able to give us $1 or $5 or $10 a month that literally keep the lights on, keep us going. So
I produce 6 episodes a month. There's no way I could do that if I also had to have a day job. Like,
oh yeah,
by having that financial support, I can do Crimelines full time, which means I can put out more episodes. If I had to go, into the regular workforce and not my made up job of podcasting, I mean, I'd probably have 2 episodes a month on a good month just because I wouldn't have the time to do it.
and you'd be very burnt out.
Yes, 100%.
Well, I put out bi-weekly and I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
So it just shows you like how much work it is. My goal is to get back to weekly, but when I started the show, I didn't start with like a bank of episodes ready.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of started it, and that's like my number one recommendation to people who want advice starting out. I'm like, make sure that you have like 2 months of content scheduled, ready to go. And then you also have like a bank of episodes, because it gets hard and life happens and you don't want to miss dates. So now I'm consistent, but that's because I scaled back to bi-weekly. But my goal is to get back to weekly, or at least 3 episodes a month. And we've been working towards that, but we put so much like research and interviews into every episode. It's like there's 80 plus hours that go into each episode. It's just not possible to do weekly unless I'm really ahead.
And all the scheduling with whoever's involved.
Exactly. Like they don't run on my time, the family members and police. I run on their time. So if they cancel, on a Friday and that episode is supposed to come out on a Tuesday, like unless I have a backup, that's not happening.
I tell families when I'm working with them, because I always give them the script ahead of time for corrections and stuff, because there's always something I either misunderstood or they didn't say explicitly that clears something up. There's always something. So when I send it to them, I always say, this episode comes out when you're ready for it to come out. I'm not even putting it on the calendar until you give me the green light, because otherwise I'm sitting on 4 episodes that I'm not ready to publish yet, and I have nothing ready. And so because I don't have family involvement in all of my episodes. I kind of go back and forth. It depends on a lot of circumstances of the episode. But one of the things that I try to do is like let the family know this is your timeline. Especially right now, I'm working with multiple families and it's Christmas. And I'm like, if you don't want to do this until after the holidays, like right now is not the time to be revisiting your greatest loss. I totally understand. But if you can do it now, I can have the episode out next week. But we can wait till January. That's on you. Like, that's totally fine.
Like, can you please re-traumatize yourself right before Christmas? That'd be great.
Yeah, right. Like, just ring the jingle bells. But I mean, most of them are so eager to get the story out that they do have a pretty quick turnover, even around the holidays. But I don't want to put pressure on them.
Yeah, I don't count on that turnover happening. Like there's space if we need it, but if I have it and it's ready and everything is like good to go and, cross-checked and all that, then like I can put it out. But if not, it's okay. And I learned that early on too, where I'm like, okay, I need to give myself space and options because things might not happen. So now, stuff is way further back in the production process than you would think.
I do appreciate talking to other podcasters, though, because there are the ones, like anyone who knows Josh Hallmark knows that on Wednesday and Thursday of every week, he's not going to respond to your text because he's working on his episode that comes out on Thursday. But then there's people like Generation Y, where I'll mention a case and they're like, oh, yeah, we have that. It's coming out in 6 weeks. And I'm like, how are you recorded that far ahead?
Oh, I am not recorded that far ahead.
No, they are way ahead all the time.
That's the dream. That is the podcaster's dream.
I'm just a person, if I have any lead, then I'm not going to get anything done. I need the pressure of the deadline. So anytime I have a lead, I lose it very fast.
Yeah, we're usually a couple weeks ahead, but it's only because we have a professional editor who's like, "Come on, this is how it should be."
Well, they have deadlines too. Like, you can't just hand them something and be like, "Okay, I need to publish this in 48 hours."
And it's there's video content too, so he's like, "Okay, let's."
I do watch a lot of your Instagram reels. I love how you guys cut them up into those little, bites and stuff.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
they're really fun.
With some of the graphics are so funny. Like the images that we have to go along with stuff. It's like, oh.
This holiday season, surprise everyone on your list with the best gifts. Tickets to see their favorite artists live. Choose from thousands of concerts and comedy shows, including Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, Matt Matthews, Metallica, Thomas Rhett, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Sarah Silverman, and so many more. Share a memory together or give a gift they'll never forget. Find the most exciting gift for every fan at livenation.com/gifts. That's livenation.com/gifts.
Pivoting just a little bit and sort of, in my case, related to forensic files, is there a case that either of you covered in 2024 that really stands out as like a favorite for any reason?
I cover, obviously, if I'm doing 6 episodes a month, I have a lot of cases to choose from. But there's a case that I got so wrapped up in. I swear I was like dreaming about it because I was just so into the details on it. And it's the Lynn Hernan murder. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It happened in Wisconsin. Basically, her friend's daughter was her quote unquote caregiver. She was, she wasn't like 80. She was in her 50s, but she had really poor health. And it was getting worse and worse the longer this person, who'd already been to jail for identity theft and fraud, started taking care of her. Mind you, she had money from an inheritance.
Was this person like a nurse or trained at all?
No. She was a convicted felon who steals rich people's money. So they thought, what a perfect matchup. But Lynn had known her since she was little. And Lynn herself had been to prison before for a significant amount of time for a DUI. So it was like her 7th or 8th DUI. It was a lot. So Lynn had her own stuff. And so she had Jesse Kerchevsky come in and help take care of her. And when she died, a lot of people were like, oh, it's just health problems, obviously. But then the autopsy showed that she had died of a overdose of a medication that is found in eye drops. So then Jesse's story starts changing, and she said that Lynn was drinking the eye drops on her own to get high from. So then there's all this research into, can you even get high on that? And other cases with eye drop poisoning. Jesse went to trial, and this was in Wisconsin. It was the same judge who did the Darrell Brooks trial, the sovereign citizen. She is on top of things. She is great. But then the sentencing was completely unhinged, which was fantastic. Like, Jesse made this 2-hour-long statement. I was like, oh, are you going to stop anytime soon? I was like listening to it on 2 times speed. But I was trying to take notes as fast as I could because everything she was saying was just so weird. I thought, oh, this is a pretty straightforward case. It's going to be like a 30-minute episode. I ended up doing 2 parts on it, and I still didn't get to everything I wanted to cover. So I think those are the cases I like to cover from a creator standpoint, is the ones that I'm just I delve into, and so from a creator standpoint, I really enjoyed making that one because of how much I had to do on it. But then also from the standpoint of the audience, it's just sometimes there's such a fine line in some of these cases of even trying to prove that it's murder. Like, it's murder, but can you prove it? And this is one of those cases where they had to work piece by piece by piece to build up the circumstantial evidence to prove that Lynn didn't drink the eye drops herself. And so it was really, really interesting in that regard.
I wonder how many eye drops you have to drink to... I just Googled it, but...
I didn't even know that was a thing that you could, like, both of our faces, Lucy and I, were just like, what?
Well, that was part of the defense, too, was like, even if she had a lethal dose of eye drops, like, can you even get to a lethal dose? Because it's not like the medication is super concentrated. And then maybe it was her other health issues and she just happened to also have eye drops. But a lot of the evidence had to do with the ongoing theft that Jessie was doing. And Lynn just happened to die right as she was realizing she was running out of money. So that's a pretty big point on the timeline. So it was just a really fascinating case.
Yeah, that sounds it.
I knew that you could put eye drops in someone's like drink or something and give them diarrhea.
To make them sick. Yeah. I want to say it's tetrahydrazine. Is that
tetrahydrazine?
I don't know. I had to. Oh, look at that. I was that one. The amount I Google how to pronounce words, even common words where I say it, and I'm like, am I saying that right?
I do that all the time.
If I'm not saying it in standard American pronunciation, whatever our neutral accent is, this is how you say it, I'm going to get an email. I'm just going to get an email. And just keep sending those emails because I'm going to keep saying things wrong. I just do.
I mean, you can deep dive Google, ask locals, and you'll still get it wrong because there's like different regional pronunciations. And one local will be like, well, it's pronounced Kennybunk. And then another will be like, no, it's Kennebunk. And you'll be like, well, which one is it? So you just have to go with it. And I don't know, sometimes we just say things wrong, but just know that we've tried. We've tried really hard.
Yes, it's not like I'm mispronouncing these things because I didn't look it up or I wasn't doing my research. But the other thing is, if I'm doing 2 hours of content and I mispronounce a word, you can just trust that I did research because I have 2 hours of content. But the pronunciation just may be something that I didn't get.
That's what Peter Thomas said.
To bring it back to me nitpicking Peter Thomas.
Kristen, do you have a case that you covered this year that stands out?
Yeah, so it's really hard to choose a favorite. So I work with a lot of families and cover a lot of unsolved cases that barely have a hit on the internet. And I will say that it's really meaningful to look back on a year and see how many episodes that we've done where it now has like a 45-minute episode telling the story. So those ones I'm just going to kind of set aside as just like a group because I don't want to like pick between all of the families. But other than that, we did a 2-part update on Harmony Montgomery in June, which is a case that I covered right before it exploded in the media, shortly after the case was basically announced to the public. And there is just so much coverage on that case. And to top off, there's an entire trial that was live streamed on YouTube and there's records and all of this. So there was a focus on the gruesomeness of the case. Like, it's a pretty horrific case. It's a child case, if you're not familiar. Current, it happened, went to trial this year. And I really wanted people to understand the case from the beginning, starting with how Harmony's father, Adam, got custody in the first place and just kind of demonstrate how many people had hands on her case prior to this point and how many organizations had a part in what happened. So if you want to know the whole story, we really tried to clarify the timeline and basically just pick like the highlights of the trial so that you can get the whole story in 2 parts. But other than that, I actually am really excited about the 2-part episode that just dropped. So at the point that this will be coming out, the part 2 of the murder of Renee Cody will be released. And it's a case from 1946 in Brockton, Massachusetts that I stumbled on in the newspaper archives, which is one of my favorite ways to find cases where I'll just be researching something else and then a headline will pique my interest and I'll start reading it and I'll be like, what is this? And there's nothing on Google. And I just start researching and it just keeps getting more and more wild. So I researched this case 3 years ago, but I knew that I needed to release it around Christmas time. Like, that was the only option. And it didn't happen in 2022. And then it didn't happen in 2023. So I was like, all right, this is the year. I'm going to do this case. And it's the murder of a man named Renee Cody, who was found bludgeoned beside a toppled Christmas tree in his apartment in Brockton. And his wife said that intruders broke in and killed him. And the newspapers dubbed it the Christmas tree murder. And it's just this old Hollywood style case that it could be an HBO show, honestly. There's scandals and showgirls and affairs and some wacky stuff that happened at the trial. And it's just, I've just been like sitting on this case for 3 years now, and it's finally out. And now I want to make it into a movie. So I'm manifesting that for 2025.
Oh my God. Heck yeah. I got to listen to that too.
What about you?
Well, again, going back to Forensic Files, we did an episode. It was episode 394, so it was just like a month or two ago, called Forensic Firsts. So it was like breakthroughs in various fields of forensics. And this one was, oh my God, it's so disturbing. So there's a guy named Vincent Brothers, and he was married to a woman named Joni, and they had 3 kids by the time this incident happened, but like they split up and got back together like a few times. It wasn't a great marriage. And then at one point they are living in California. So it's Vincent and Joni's mother, and then their 3 kids. And I think they're like 4, 2, and a 6-week-old baby. So Vincent goes to Ohio to visit his brother. And while he's in Ohio, the family is like, they're very devout in their faith. They went to church in the morning, and then they were going to go home for like a midday, like lunch or whatever. And then they go back to church in the evening on a Sunday. And Joni was really excited to be at church because this was the first time she's like showing all of her friends her new baby. So when they went home for lunch and they didn't come back to church in the evening, people were getting kind of nervous because they're like, there's no reason why they wouldn't have come back. No one's answering their phones. So the next morning, someone came over and found all of them dead in their home,
including the little kids. It's a rough one.
It's really, really rough. And this was an episode of Forensic Files, if I didn't clarify that. They were all shot. I believe they were all shot. And they didn't know who had done it. And Vincent was like, well, I was in Ohio.
Here's my plane ticket to prove it.
Here's my plane ticket. Here's my rental car information. And at first the cops were like, oh, okay. And then eventually they took a look at the rental car and saw that it had like thousands of miles put onto it. And they actually took bugs off of the front grill of the car and had a forensic entomologist identify the bugs. And not only was she able to say, oh, well, this grasshopper only lives west of the Rockies, they were able to find out exactly what roads he took in the middle of the night from Ohio to California to kill his whole family, to get back to Ohio, to like have a solid alibi. So it wasn't only like the regions that these bugs lived in, but she could say that he was only driving at night because there were none of like the daytime bugs on the grill.
That stuff is so cool.
And I just thought that was so fascinating. And it wasn't even a full bug. It was just the leg of one grasshopper and like a couple other bugs. That was shocking to me. I saw the Forensic Files episode and I was like, I have got to dig into this more, like what Charlie's doing. And there is so much more than what was covered on the show, it's even cooler what they're able to do. So yeah, dude got sentenced to death and then like something got overturned. It's currently like kind of up and they have to like refile something. But yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, those cases, I always learn some really random fact, like when they do the ones like on stomach contents and they're like, well, it was like an apple or a potato because the cellular structure is similar. I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea that you could do all that. There's a case they covered where they narrowed down time of death based on stomach contents. I was like, I just really don't think that much about these things. But then once I'm hearing about it on Forensic Files, I'm like, tell me more. I want to know everything. I'm going to be a forensic scientist myself.
Yeah. Our forensic spectrometry episode that just came out today, we talk about using that kind of technology on stomach contents to figure out like what the material is.
Yeah.
Science is so cool.
I love the forensic side of shit. That's my favorite.
I do too. And I get really disappointed whenever they debunk anything. I'm like, can you stop spoiling? Okay, let's let all the people wrongfully convicted out. But like, I want to watch another CSI episode on this.
Yeah. Enhance.
Yes. Which, yeah, watching those with my husband, who was a graphic designer for many years. He moved into user experience stuff, but we'd watch the episodes and all of the computer stuff. He's like, that's impossible. You can't do that. You can't make up pixels. That's not how it works. And then I'm on the forensic side. I'm like, oh, they got DNA overnight. That's fascinating. They stopped everything in the lab to do this one little case that this investigator had in his heart. Like, yeah, okay, that didn't happen.
And there was a perfect match just waiting.
Everything's a full DNA profile. I love that. Everybody always finds full DNA profiles everywhere. I love TV.
Okay, well, just to kind of round things out, tell us what's coming up in 2025 for both of you that you're excited about.
I have mostly the same old when it comes to the podcast. We're just going to keep doing tons of episodes. And that's kind of nice to be in a spot where I did shake things up this year a little bit with getting the new Patreon show going. And now I can just kind of work on it and move forward. But of course, I have that Trova trip coming up with Josh Hallmark. We are going to Chile and Argentina. We've actually added on a couple days. We're going to do kind of a side quest afterwards, which is going to be fun. And yeah, we still have a few spots open on it, but it closes pretty soon. So, I think we kind of have our core group that's going, and it's really exciting. I'm excited for that. It's a new kind of side to podcasting. I never really thought about being, the influencer side of it, where you do those things with listeners and you get together with them, but it is pretty cool.
Well, I won't be traveling to Argentina anytime soon, but I do have my passport now, which is nice.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be at TCPF in Boston in July. It's in July, right? Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think it's July 18th-ish.
And then I'll be at AdvocacyCon in March, and that's in Indianapolis. That's all I have on. Oh, and the Berkshires. Whatever happens with the Berkshires, it might get shaken up a little bit, but I'll be at that, and probably whatever else pops up on the radar. So as far as travel goes, I think that's roughly it, with maybe a couple of surprises along the way. And as far as the podcast, I'd like to get back to not full bi-weekly. I'd like to do 3 episodes a month, or, start adding in more to the calendar. I think that would be really nice. Get up a Patreon. I'd love to do more collaborative stuff, like this. Like, this is super fun. And yeah, just keep doing the work. I have some stuff that we've been working on for a while that I'm really excited to be able to finally release. And yeah, it is snowing right now. That's why I keep looking out the window. I'm like distracted because it's like flying around my head outside me.
It's snowing here too. I love it.
What about you?
Well, for us, like I mentioned, our Wine and Crime Uncorked premium channel rolling out January 1st. We're really excited about that. More video content, especially around like all the travel that we're doing. We have 2 more Trova trips coming up. We're going to Greece in June, and then we're going to Ireland in September.
So cool.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that our Ireland trip doesn't overlap with the Berkshires. But if it does, I'm going to Ireland.
I know. I was going to say, oh, poor Lucy and Amanda. They have to be in Ireland this weekend.
Too bad. Yeah, more live shows, more touring. We've got a whole calendar coming up. So be sure to follow us on social media. We're at Wine and Crime Pod for any updates on that. But yeah, really excited to see what 2025 brings. And I'm proud of the progress that we've all made in 2024. And yeah, where can people find you guys on social or on the internets?
You can find Murder, She Told anywhere you get podcasts. It's Murder, She Told and not Murder, She Wrote. Just clarifying that. And Murder, She Told podcast on Instagram. Pretty much if you just type in Murder, She Told, you'll find it on any social media platform, and murdershetold.com.
I'm under Crimelines most places. Some places like TikTok, I'm under Crimelines Charlie because I do not entirely true crime stuff there. So if it's Crimelines, then it's mostly true crime. If it's Crimelines Charlie, I'm probably talking about the Real Housewives, and I'm sorry.
don't ever apologize for that. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Happy holidays, and we will see you in 2025.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!